So Chad, thanks for joining us on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I have to tell you, the first time I became aware of who you were, we started doing at the agency, this goes back 15 years, we started doing websites, and I never thought we would do website design. And the website that kept getting pointed at was Dudley DeBosier.
Wow, okay.
And I want my site to look like Dudley DeBosier. And it was because it was you two really good looking guys up there, and I had to tell all these prospective clients, I'm like, you guys can't pull this off.
That's very kind.
I'm not being, like, it happened over and over again over a period of like 2 years. I was like, I can't make you these good-looking guys. Like, it's just not a thing we can do in marketing. So we're going to talk about MSOs, what you've done. I would like to get, and we're going to try and get a whole bunch of different perspectives.
Sure.
But I'd love to get your kind of perspective on what you're doing, explain the whole MSO concept, what you're looking for, to people who don't really understand it, to law firms who don't really understand it, because a lot of firms don't really have a clue.
No, look, I think it's a very terrifying concept for a lot of law firms, and it was a structure that made sense, especially for after the ABSs in Arizona kind of got some significant pushback from a couple of the states.
Sure.
That people were looking at, well, if I want to grow my firm, if I want to scale it, if I want to take on investors, is there a mechanism by which I can do that also complies with all the ethical rules of being an attorney? And the MSOs had been used in the past to do that, and they kind of came into resurgence through all this stuff, because really what happened was, the ABS, I believe in Arizona, got everyone excited about investing in law firms.
Right.
And then when some of the states said, well, no, hold your horses, you can't do that, there's still this interest had already been created, and now it diverted to the MSO structure. And I think a lot of people were standing around and go, I've heard rumors of MSOs being formed, I've heard about it in other industries, but we're going to wait until someone we know actually does it. And when we did it, we had been in a bunch of mastermind groups with dozens of firms. We had been owners of an advertising agency that interacted with 60 plus firms. We've done consulting with 200 plus firms. And so when we did it, we were probably one of the, not the first, but the first firm that people go, oh, I know those guys.
Right.
Like that's real. That's tangible. It's like
right.
So it's wild.
So I mean, we're a podcast about marketing. Very simplistically, how does an MSO accelerate growth? Like pure growth, not like efficiencies, we're just going to cut everything down and sell it for parts, but like how does it accelerate growth?
Well, there's three ways that, so you can increase what goes to the bottom line. Is obviously you can increase the number of cases, or you can increase the value that you add to each of those cases, or you can reduce expenses. So the first two are top line, the last one is bottom line. Our strategy, while being responsible about the bottom line, has never been, hey, let's go increase profits by cutting the bottom line. It's been like, let's make the firm better, let's focus on getting better results for the clients, let's get more cases in the door. And so the two levers that the MSO looks at is, how do we get cases in more efficiently in terms of the cost per case, and then two, how do we make sure that we get the absolute best results for the clients that we're lucky enough to represent. And so there's a bunch of different strategies on both of those fronts. And I know it's it's a little bit like, of course, Chad, get more cases and get more out of them.
But no, but like that's so yes, from a big picture perspective. So how does that work, right? How do you get more cases? How does an MSO make that actually happen?
And you guys know at the beginning of the marketing space that when you look at how a firm acquires cases, it's very, sometimes, there's attribution challenges that you might encounter.
Oh,
You ever run into those? So there's, like understanding where the dollars are currently going, what's currently working, what is the firm's current cost per case, what is their, and a lot of people leave out, what is the relationship to the cost per case to the average fee, right? Because if you are, no one gets this anymore, but if you, when I say no one gets this, no one's getting cases for $1,000 a case, but I'm using it for simplistic purposes. But say you get a case for $1,000, and then you're able to, your average fee is $10,000, which is horrible, by the way, but there's still a 10-to-1 ROI,
right,
in theory. But then there's a couple things that people don't really take into consideration. Is going, okay, well, if you sign up 100 cases and it's $1,000 per case, but you only close 50% of them with the fee, your cost per case is $1,000, but what I call your true cost per case is really 2,000 because you're spending 2,000 for a fee producing case, and what is the difference between that and your average closed fee, and understanding that relationship and what is different for each firm. Some firms are very selective. Their average closed fee is $100,000. They can afford to pay more for a case than someone,
sure,
all that kind of stuff, right? So going in and analyzing how those things currently operate at the existing firm and understanding where we might be able to find some lazy dollars is what I call them, but inefficiencies of where those spends are going. Looking at how they are doing attribution, and also there's a lot of opportunity, believe it or not, even in this advanced stage of technology and all these other things that we're seeing, of just doing like the grassroots marketing, like having a solid foundation of, I always think about like, gosh, a lot of our marketing is geared to getting more people to the restaurant, so to speak. But then if the food sucks, they're not telling people about it, they're not going back. And so the client service component plays such a big role in the overall marketing strategy. And we get so sophisticated sometimes that we forget how much low-hanging fruit there is. I mean, 1% of the population gets in a crash with injuries every year. Only 25 to 30% of those people actually call an attorney. And then an even smaller number of that actually calls your firm. Like, that is gold.
Right.
You got to do everything you can, whether you take their case or not, just to add value to that interaction and help them out. And so back to your question, how do you get more cases? It's analyzing all those strategies and going, okay, where are there opportunities with each particular firm? Because it's different. Some are great at certain things. They have a great sort of mass market strategy, but they're missing on the client service, blocking and tackling stuff. Other firms are really great here, and they're just lost in the complexities of all the digital stuff. And you find out where they can gain more cases.
So does this, it feels like a massive extension of the mastermind concept, right? And
yeah.
It feels like that's where this is going, and it's a more formalized business structure to what has otherwise been a very open sharing system without kind of business behind
That's exactly how I've been describing it, going, okay, this is like the overused term mastermind on steroids, where people are not only incentivized to, because I'm your friend, I like hang out with you, you're part of my group, I want you to do better, and here's how I do things that I do well, right? That's how mastermind groups, and then you tell me what you do great and I get better. So the mastermind groups, when they work really, really well, and they often do, is that all the firms are making themselves better. Well, now in this structure, we're not only in this group, but we're part of a team, and I actually financially benefit the better you run your firm, and vice versa. And we have this team that is like in charge of making sure, hey, that great thing you heard me say, I do at the last meeting, there's now a team. If you say I want to do that at my firm, they're going to come and help you implement it, not just send you the forms, not just tell you in passing how to do it.
Right.
Have a team help you then apply those things. And so, yes, mastermind group at a whole nother level.
Okay. One of the things so you guys are very clear when you're talking about the structure. It's not a franchise model. You're not looking for firms to go and use the same intake management software. Like, you're not taking a template and applying it to a bunch of firms. You guys are specifically looking for you said 1 and 2 in the market, with a strong brand. The brand maintains itself. And they don't have to run off the template, right? And yet you're trying to, there's tension there between here's the best practices that we believe, and also like, hey, I'm a number 2 in my market, man. Don't tell me how to run my show. Like, that's a hard balance to
and again, that
walk.
goes into, and I say 1 or 2 in the market. We're looking for like firms that are having, call it sustaining success, and there's firms that have great brands that are on the uprise. There's firms that are like, been great for a long time. But important with that is finding owners that are also very, that concept of constant, never-ending improvement. Where you're like, really great, Lee Coleman, really close friend, mentor, Hughes and Coleman, one of the best-run firms I know out there. And I was so impressed early on in my consulting career. I did some work with them, and this was like the best-run firm I've known. I'm like, why are you calling me to come look at your stuff? And he goes, Chad, I'm always trying to learn how to do things better. If you can just get me a little bit better,
right?
My firm's up, and it has a ripple effect on all the cases that we sign up. And I was just blown away by someone that was been doing this for 30 plus years, known throughout the industry, does such great things, was still looking for like little ways to be better. And I found that was a common trait in a lot of the people I enjoy hanging around with. And so in this group, it's like I want to find guys that have that mentality. Like, let's put the egos aside and go, how do we build something great, whether it's my idea or your idea? And so part of that is in the vetting process in the early parts of the talks. I hope that we don't have people that are like, my way or the highway, because I'm not like that. And I
Right.
want, and it's got to be data-driven strategies. And now the good thing is I've been doing consulting for close to 20 years, and I've had those type of conversations with countless owners, and there is absolutely like, here's the data that supports going this path or implementing this strategy.
Right.
Your data's here. Do you want to, like, this is our best bet to improve it. And
Right.
That's how I approach it.
Okay.
I think for, again, I think one of the most important things that a lot of lawyers are concerned about. So let's just assume I'm like a 1 or 2 tier firm in my market. I love this idea. It sounds like you guys are better at a lot of this stuff. Like, we just know it. And then I'm like, okay, on the other side of it, I'm like, what's the relationship between? So I'm an equity owner in the MSO. I've got my law firm. How do we think about the relationship there in terms of like profitability? Like, and I also kind of like to get your thoughts on like the competitive environment, because it's like, if you got like a firm, let's say I'm in Southeast Michigan, you pick up a firm in Southeast Michigan, you pick up a firm in Chicago, you pick up a firm in Northern Indiana. Like, we're competing, those firms are competing for cases. How do you navigate? Like, do the cases still, like, you're just like, look, as firms, you guys are still competing with each other. But operationally through the MSOs, you're actually on the same team. Like, how do you have those conversations?
And there's a lot of ways to approach it, but what I can tell you is that, we mentioned this, people are going, oh, is there a window where, we got to do this, or if we don't do this, it's going to be gone? I'm like, no, not really. I think this is just a new era, and there's going to be a market now for, if you want to sell an interest in your firm. With that said, you're like, okay, well, people are starting to join teams, and so if we had someone that was, say in the Chicago market, and there's someone that was coming up and wanted to join the team from a market where there's overlap, I'm going to go to my firm in Chicago and go, hey, do you know this guy? Would he be a good fit? How do you feel about them joining the MSO? What do you think about how it complements the overall mission and objective? And if he's like, nah, I don't, no, then it's probably not going to happen, right? Because we got to keep the team feeling cohesive, feeling like they enjoy spending time with each other in the room. They don't feel threatened. They feel like they are totally bought into making all the other member firms better. And so you got to preserve that. And so that's where I say, gosh, if you don't get in with some of these teams, you may be excluded because there's conflicts, right? And I don't say that to be like, oh, scare people, you got to do this now. It's not that, but there's definitely a choice to be made now.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because that's the thing I think about is, the two biggest things for me are, is this a better experience for clients, right? And I think you addressed that, and I don't want to belabor it. Most of the firms most of the conversations around the concerns about this are like, does this harm legal services consumers? And I think you guys have really done a good job of articulating that. I think about the next candidate for you, and I'm just like, I'm driving down the highway, and I've got, because we won't use anybody's names, but we got Firm A, Firm B, Firm C. How do you, we're on the same team for the MSO. Let's say we like each other, all those good things. Whose billboard's going up? I mean, and then, who the firm, the client signs with the firm. They don't sign with the MSO. And so then it's like, how do you make those decisions and navigate that in terms of like, we think that this billboard here should go here, and then this client's going to this firm versus this other firm. I think that's the hard thing to understand.
And that goes back to like, as you get the founding firms or the founding member firms and going, okay, if we're going to add stuff in where there's possibly an overlap in the market, we got to maintain the integrity and the cohesiveness of the starting group. And so the only way they'd come in would be if the person in that market said, okay, I know these guys, and also the person joining says we can all collectively push for the greater good of the MSO. Now, with that said, if there are two firms in the same market, the idea is how do we get both firms to grow? Because
right.
If one grows and the other one goes in the ground, that's not good for the collective whole. And so we look at all these and go, how can each member firm continue to serve its clients better and in a more efficient way?
Awesome. And then the other thing that I was really interested to kind of, you alluded to this, but a lot of private equity, like the game plan is like, we're going to roll up these companies, we're going to sell them again in 5 years. Talk to us about that in this context. Is that the Orion plan, or is it, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that the idea is, and again, it goes back to the strategy of saying, the things that would make this a great organization, that would make it great for the clients, that would make it a well-run company, would also make it attractive to some other maybe another buyer down the road in the future. And the fact that it now has a bigger footprint and serves more clients is more attractive. Now, when we get to that spot, it could be like, well, Uplift, and they decide, hey, we're going to sell our shares, and it could be like these two firms want to sell their shares, and it could be like, hey, these bunch of firms want to roll into the next phase and maybe do that again, or there'll be opportunities and options there that did not exist 2 years ago for many of us, right? And so, yeah, the plan is that Uplift has investors and they're expecting a return on that. So they're investing in great firms doing great things for their clients like they would, other great businesses. Where it goes 5 years from now, yeah, they'll probably get some of their dollars back, but there's a bunch of different options for everyone that has shares in Orion.
For a firm wanting to make themselves attractive to you, right? We're thinking about this. There's always a push me pull you between your growth rate and your profitability, because today's profits finance tomorrow's growth or not,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
How would you advise people to kind of run that careful balance, right?
Yeah.
Let me put this differently. On one end of the spectrum, I take all of my profit, I pay myself a reasonable salary, I take all of my profit, and I throw into tomorrow's branding work today that's going to drive tomorrow's
Sure.
business, right? And or on the flip side, I'm like, listen, I'm going to turn all of this crap off because I want to jack my EBITDA up as much as possible in order to get as much as I can when I join this group. How would you advise firms to think about that push me pull you on profit versus growth?
Just a high level of intentionality, right? I mean, I always say, okay, is it by design or by default? And going, if I have a very clear strategy of like, hey, I want to go to market in 12 months from now, and this is the things that we're going to do. We're going to do all these things to make us more attractive in 12 months from now. Okay, I can get behind that strategy. If it is like, I'm just going to like, for the indefinite future, try and stifle the growth and really maximize profits,
right,
possibly to the detriment of the firm. I don't like that strategy because it's putting too many eggs in the basket of this transaction. I'm betting on this transaction occurring.
Right.
And so, some firms, all that stuff goes into consideration when you're looking at the value. I've seen firms invest in technology, in new markets, in new people, and it's part of the conversation going, hey, here's where my EBITDA was pre these investments. Here's kind of what it is now, and it's a talking point because I think everyone wants to, hey, what's the multiple, and whatever range, I know for a fact, whatever range you get, you can say 4 to 7. Everyone's going to go, well, okay, let's just start. We're 7.
We're at 7. Right.
Let me tell you why.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, let me tell you why I'm special because I really should be at 8.
I'm special. Do you know we have a really strong brand?
yeah, exactly.
You're probably undervaluing that.
Yeah, it's like, and you're like, look, I appreciate is like, people have built some really great firms. You pour their heart and soul into these things, and I get it. And then with that said, it's a conversation.
Okay.
And the potential buyers buy the story behind the numbers, or they don't.
Okay. Let me ask another question. Outside money, how much, if any, is going into pumping the advertising marketing engine? Right. We're talking about growth. Like, are you guys looking at bringing in some of that outside money and throwing gas on the fire from a marketing perspective?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we're dedicated to hyper growth, like to really growing these firms as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
We have some really, some great resources to do that. That doesn't mean to spend silly dollars. Like we don't want to put, like just be irresponsible, but still being highly intentional. Always A/B testing, looking at the things, and being very responsible for the dollars that we have. That's how we approach it at the advertising agency. I mean, we've had clients that say, hey, I want to spend this much of the market. And I said, look, stagger it up and let's do it this way. Let's measure the results as we go.
Yeah.
And again, being responsible with those dollars. But with that said, there's we have access to resources that we didn't have access to prior.
Okay. Let me ask one more. Go ahead.
Here's
we try and go back and forth usually.
This is a difficult question that you might just be like, I have no idea. But Tim mentioned there's 3 states at least that are putting up some resistance to non-lawyer, the MSO concept in general: California, Illinois, and Colorado. What's your general sense of sentiment across the country? Like, is that a trending thing, or those kind of exceptions?
I think it's kind of an interesting thing. I think the initial reaction, I think both sides of the bar, plaintiff and defense, are looking at this going, should we be mad? Like, it feels like we should be mad,
It's new. It's gotta be bad.
Well, and in fairness, like, all private equity is different, right?
Yeah.
But people hear private equity and they think of the horror stories, right? They think of some of the experiences in local communities. I mean, healthcare has been, there's been some bad examples, but it's not all the same.
Yeah, and I think stereotypes are a crutch for lazy thinking, right? And I think you look at the plaintiff's bar. I mean, talk about a bad rap.
Right. Or marketing companies.
Some of the most amazing, incredible, just biggest heart people that I know are plaintiff attorneys. And I'm like, and that's why look, it pisses me off when I hear all these like stereotypes. And so I don't. Yes, there's these beliefs out there. And that's why we went through the vetting process, finding a group that we just were like, hey, they believe the things we believe, the values we share, and how we're going to approach this was critical, right? And so we're looking at all these things and going, okay, we're going to make sure that we do it right every step of the way, regardless of cost. And so that's how we approach it. So you look at these, this legislation. I think you do have these, like, hey, this sounds like, again, should I be mad? I think I should be mad. It feels like I should be mad. And they're trying to figure out what that looks like. And they're basically saying, look, because all plaintiff attorneys use third-party services. I mean, people answer our intake, to draft demand letters, review medical records.
Hire marketing agencies.
Marketing agencies.
Overpay bad marketing agencies.
Yeah, right. It's, all these things. And it's like, okay, well, if you lump them together, are you saying we can't do that? Or like, how do we? So it's murky. And so the states that are coming out, they're just trying to take a hard stance, I think, to say, hey, we want to overemphasize that the basic tenet of this is that the MSO cannot tell the law firm what to do. And like, we want to make sure we understand that, which is like, yeah, we get that. That's the premise of this whole thing, right? And it's got to be respected, and you got to partner with someone that also respects it, because you cross that line, it's bad across the board. And so I think the legislation that you see coming out is, I haven't seen one piece of legislation that comes out and says, hey, not like with the ABSs, they've come out and said, you cannot send fees or share fees with an Arizona ABS that has non-attorney ownership, right? That's pretty cut and dry. They have not gone anywhere near that with the MSO structure, just saying, hey, look, you got to respect the design.
I'm going to go back to brand. One of the things you really focused on, you said this multiple times, firms with a strong brand. And Gyi and I talk about the importance of a strong brand all the time. Having said that, we know from market research that roughly 60% of people in any given market cannot name a single law firm, right? And even in the Morgan & Morgan kind of saturation marketing, you're looking at 10 to 15% brand awareness on a Morgan & Morgan. And if you have a really strong, and I don't know if your own data corroborates this, but we've seen this across multiple markets, super strong local brand, you're looking at 10 to 20, maybe 20% brand awareness. Can you, so I was surprised to hear you say that the brand, you said it many times, brand is super important to us, well known, number 1, 2, that type of thing. Why do you, I like hearing that, but why? Why does the brand become so important when I think it is really hard to get brand awareness set in a market?
Like different, definitions or variations of brand awareness, but when you're looking at a firm and it's a conglomeration of how do people talk about the firm in the community? How do people that use their services, talk to other people about them? When someone says, "Hey, I recommend using these guys," and the other person goes, "Oh yeah, now I know them," right? And you're seeing that, and you're seeing there's a period where I would argue that it was tougher to create a brand because we were like this gap between, okay, you're just used to like everyone in front of a TV, and then people are still watching videos, but the screens are changing, and then you're seeing like brands start to develop on social media. Like, hey, I know that guy from social media.
100%.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so you're seeing all these things happen. And when we say we're looking at firms and we're looking at going, okay, what's their relationship with their client base and their community is probably what it is. And I would, again, back to the restaurant analogy, I mean, I think there's a bunch of like chain restaurants in, where I live that are great restaurants. They're fantastic restaurants. There's also a restaurant that's really great that they know me, and like I can text the guy and get a reservation, and when I get there, they know what drink my wife and I like to have, and they kind of know, and it feels like you're coming and hang out with like people that know you, and like that's where we go, right?
Right.
And so what is that? Is that brand, or is that relationships? It mixes there. And when people say, hey, where should I go? I'm like, hey, you should go check out this place, right? So I think that we're looking at firms that look at their relationship with their clients in that way and have like that general recognition that on top of that. So it's, I guess, a mix of client service and awareness.
Okay.
And we see that being a powerful lever. And then whatever they do, everything else, if they do a billboard with that background, it's more effective. If they do a radio ad with that background, it's more effective, right? That's our thoughts on it.
Well, I'm going to ask a pointed question. You can say it or you don't want to answer, but I'm curious strategically, like when you think about your marketing mix for your firm, how does that cut brand versus non-brand? Like what your brand investment is a percentage of your total marketing budget versus non-brand?
Like brand versus like direct response? Or,
Yes. Exactly that.
When I look at brand and direct response, I mean, I don't know the exact mix of, but we're I mean, it's heavily branded.
Yeah, and trying to move more resources.
Yeah, but that's our style and that's our personalities. Where we're not like this, flashing cash and putting up big numbers. Hey, we got this much. Not knocking the firms that do, but that's just not been our personality and our style, and it's worked well for us. And then I got other clients that are wildly successful with that type of approach, and that's what they like to do. And the market can also, like stuff that works in Vegas doesn't work in South Louisiana. There's some things that do, but not everything does. And the markets are a little bit different. So when we look at that approach and different channels, when I say channels, like mediums work differently in different markets, right? I mean, it's very tech savvy markets. They lean toward this type of stuff. The markets that are less tech savvy look like this, right? And so there's no one size fits all, I guess, is what I'm saying. And it's also like the maturity of the firm. Like, look, if you're well known, you've been advertising on TV for chunks of time, and you do a radio ad or billboard, or it's more effective than someone that's like, hey, I bought 5 billboards too. Why am I not getting the same, whatever response? So there's nuances, but we believe that direct response is important. Branding is also critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And along those lines, and again, you can decide not to tell me this, but you're a leader in this space, trailblazer in the MSO space, but just as a leader of a law firm, what are your thoughts on, like, you guys buy cases? Have you used some of these lead generation companies, or? Yeah,
I think there's good lead gen companies, there's bad lead gen companies.
What's the ratio?
What do you look for? What do you look for in a lead generation company?
They're fickle. They're there's some good ones out there, but there's a lot of they're different. There's companies that are great in one market and they're not great in another market. There's companies that are great for a season and they're not great for a season. There's companies that sell in bulk to a couple buyer and then they sell the leftovers. You got there's firms, there's good firms, really great firms that have been built on lead gen completely. From a valuation standpoint, are they attractive? And that's kind of like when I was talking about branding.
Yeah.
I was like, well, gosh, if we go by a firm and 90% of their traffic comes from one lead gen company, it makes us nervous, right? Like, what happens if that lead gen company just jacks up prices, or gets bought by a competitor,
or starts selling to a competitor? Yeah.
You're like, okay, that's when I'm saying branded leads, I'm like, okay, I don't want something that's that fickle. Right, and now, can you use it to complement what you already do? Yeah. Are there firms that are completely dependent on it and run great firms? Yeah, I can tell you that those owners stress out about where those leads are going to go if something happens.
Right.
So I'm hearing diversification.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's actually been something that Gyi and I have been talking about a lot, is diversification. And again, I'm sorry we're going really long, but strategically, we believe that if you are dependent on one marketing channel, you are waiting for a failure.
Yeah.
And you're evaluating your acquisitions in terms of having a diversified marketing set.
That's it.
Because otherwise you're dependent on one thing, and that thing in technology world can disappear tomorrow.
Yes. That's exactly right.
Sounds like we've been giving good advice.
We are great. So you think this is some of the best marketing that you have heard?
That's
okay,
right.
Good. Thanks for saying that, Chad.
Chad
We'll put that
Dudley,
on the front.
Thank you. So we are going to let you go now, but for folks that are interested in learning more or getting in touch with you to participate in this, what's the best way to reach out?
C Dudley at DudleyDeBosier.com. It's DudleyDeb. DeBosier.com. Shoot me an email.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Thank you guys.